No one is going to be able to sing an augmented fourth. And that's in Maria. Maria.
Yeah.
And it's like, and nobody wants to listen to it either. It's like, are you kidding? That's like the coolest thing.
Welcome to VoiceOver. I'm your host, Heather Bigley, and I talk to people about the movies that made a mark. It's not always the movie you'd expect. Today's movie is the 1961 adaptation of West Side Story. The original stage play from the 1950s was written by Jerome Robbins, based on Romeo and Juliet, with lyrics from Stephen Sondheim and music by Leonard Bernstein. Robbins is then going to go on to co-direct with Robert Wise the actual film. Robert Wise will go on to direct The Sound of Music. And the script was adapted by Ernest Lehman, who had worked with Billy Wilder, Alfred Hitchcock. So basically, the bench is deep on this production, and the result is that West Side Story becomes the highest-grossing film of 1961 and then goes on to win 10 Oscars. Best Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actor, Best Supporting Actress, Art Direction, Cinematography, Costume Design, Editing, Sound, Musical Scoring. In 1997, the film was selected to be part of the American National Film Registry, so it's lived on in our national culture. My guest today is Elizabeth Hansen, the owner and founder of Dramafy, an audio drama streaming platform for all ages. She's also the executive director of the Utah Lyric Opera and a writer and actor. She holds an MFA in screenwriting from the American Film Institute. Stick around after the conversation for more recommendations. I said, what would be some movies you want to talk about? And you gave me this list.
It was a good list.
I like it. Mary Poppins, Gone with the Wind, Wizard of Oz, West Side Story, and The Sand Pebbles. 3 of those films are musicals, and you are the executive director of the Utah Lyric Opera.
Yeah, musicals are very big for me.
Okay, let's talk about that. Why musicals, and what do they do for people that other genres can't do?
Lighten their hearts and make you hum. You can't hum on the waterfront.
No.
You just can't. My main influence came from Mary Poppins, because when I saw Mary Poppins, I was, that was 65, so I was 11.
Okay.
And it's what made me want to be an actress. My mother ruse the day she ever took me to see that, because I wanted to be Julie Andrews. And I think musicals are able to transport you into another world and out of your mundane, everyday life and take you to a different place. I've talked with a lot of people who don't like musicals.
Yeah.
And they said, well, I don't go singing down the street. And I said, well, I do.
Yeah.
And I do. I was thinking about this because nostalgia became really huge. Nostalgia for the 1940s and 50s movies and movie musicals became really big in the early 70s when I started college.
Okay.
And that's when That's Entertainment came out. That's Entertainment 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7,
Yes.
all of those. And I remember my buddies and I, who were all in the musical theater program up at the University of Utah, went to see it, and literally, we went to the last show and literally went doing what the West Side Story thing all the way down State Street.
Yeah.
And we don't care who we bothered, and we were just joyous and great and fun. And I think that's what musicals do. I think they have an ability to bypass all of this, the receptors and sensors in your head and go right to your heart and just take you to another dimension and another place.
And I've been told that by people before is, well, I don't like musicals because that's not realistic. People don't sing and dance. And my response is often, we used to. If you know a 3-year-old or a 4-year-old, they sing and dance and they are so full of joy that that's how they express themselves. And slowly but surely we get rid of that because we think we have to behave a certain way.
Well, it's pounded in. It's not because we think we have to. We're told we have to behave a certain way.
Yeah.
We start, in teenage years, start pounding that joy out of our children because that's not the way you act in public.
So the other thing to say about musicals is often the set design The set design is aimed at heightened realism. There's a slight dreamlike quality to all of it at the same time. So Wizard of Oz, that's more obvious.
Fantasy.
She's literally going to a fantasy land.
Right.
If you think of Mary Poppins, she is a magical character and she's going to touch their lives and they're going to end up traveling with her into sort of a magical experience. And then West Side Story, though, still has that for me. When I was watching it this last time, I was like noticing the makeup and the lighting and the kind of surrealistic color usage. Often when we transition from scenes, there's like these huge swaths of green or swaths of red, and then that shows up in the color that's used throughout.
The Robert Wise version is also of its time. We were in a transition from those movie musicals of the early 50s. Elia Kazan had come in and and Strasberg, and it was all becoming much more realistic and realistic and realistic.
Yeah.
But still, if you look at that On the Waterfront, if you look at Streetcar Named Desire, it still has this heightened reality that is not realism.
Right.
It's kind of tending towards that. And so I think the 61 version of West Side Story is kind of like that, where you have those lush colors. The quartet, you know, right before the rumble, the Jets are going to have their way tonight.
Yeah.
It seems so hot and steamy in the Robert Wise version because you've got those reds. It starts out with that rooftop silhouette with the red background. You just start sweating because it's so hot. And of course, you're going to have a rumble because everything is so hot. We've just got to get it out of us. But you're absolutely right. And that's something that the Spielberg does not have. It is really a lot more realistic than even what they thought realism was back in 61.
Yeah. The thing that I liked about the Spielberg, as much as I saw, because I think I saw the first hour, was that opening where they're showing that all the slums are being torn down. We have the cop making the speech.
I realize if any of you helps me out, you might spoil your chance to murder each other over control of this earthly paradise.
The Jets control it and you know it.
Uh-huh, yeah, but golly gee, Balkan, not according to the New York City Committee for Slum Clearance, which has decided to pull this whole hellmouth down to the bedrock, and you're in the way. Ah! Nice reflexes, muchacho. So, any day now, all of you are going to be evicted. You'll have to vamos, as we say in Spanish.
I don't know why you're fighting. You're all going to be gone in like a month. So why don't you just get your lives together and get out of here? And I thought to myself, that makes a whole lot more sense to me than the original, like, this is my playground and you're not allowed to be on my playground. This idea of like, we're desperately trying to control for something we can't control. We have no control over anything in our lives, so we're just going to pummel each other because that's what we have.
That's all we've got.
I want to talk more about Bernstein and the music because that is obviously one of the great aspects of this film. But I want to go back to, it's 1961. When did you first see this movie?
I was trying to think of that, and I think it was probably on television. And this would have been around, I want to say, the mid-'60s. It was probably like Saturday Night at the Movies or something like that. It was on NBC. And I remember that I recorded it. I just recorded the sound because I remember listening to it as I was mowing the lawn. And I know every single note of that show, every single line and every single note because I listened to it over and over. And then I remember seeing it. They kind of did a revival of it. See, back in the day, we couldn't go see movies just whenever we wanted to. They had to actually re-release them. They did that sometime, probably 1969, 1970, something like that. And then I finally saw it in the big screen.
So you're listening to the music. It's getting you through mowing the lawn. But
It does get me through mowing the lawn. And it was a big lawn, by the way.
what else is it doing for you that you want to be listening to it that often?
I had never heard music like this. The line in the Wikipedia thing that I was reading, I really enjoyed. It said, "No one is going to be able to sing an augmented fourth." And I went, and that's in Maria. Maria.
Yeah.
And it's like, and nobody wants to listen to it either. It's like, are you kidding? That's like the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I mean, because all the musicals that I'd been listening to, Mary Poppins, extremely traditional. And this is probably the first time I've ever heard Leonard Bernstein. And it's extraordinary music. It elicits such emotion because it cuts through all those filters in your brain that try to make sense of what words mean.
Yeah.
You know, there's so many interpretations we can make of words, but music just sails right past that and goes right into your heart.
I told you my favorite musical number is I Want to Live in America. I can't even say it. I have to sing it every time I say it. I love that number. One, because it's smart and funny, and it's a critique and a celebration all at the same time, and there's just a lot going. I think when I first saw this film in high school, that was the first time someone was articulating something about America, because I was in high school early 80s, 90s, where America was always the best and the greatest, and you don't argue with America, right? We were coming out of the Cold War. And here was this group of people saying, yeah, we love it. Golly, they are not nice to us, right?
Yeah.
We are barely getting by here, and but we're going to stay because this is our chance, right? And that critique for me was sort of eye-opening. And it gave me a place to think, okay, there might be other people who feel that way. It might not just be the Puerto Ricans in New York at the time, right? So I love that song. I'm wondering what your song is.
Do I have a favorite number? If I didn't choose, and I don't want to choose yours because I want to talk about something else, but you know, the thing I really love Officer Krupke.
That scene, I still say this line to myself. Doc says, "What's wrong with you kids when I was your age?" And then
when you were my age, when my old man was my age, when my brother was my age, he was never my age. None of ya.
Yeah. I still say that to myself.
Yeah.
And again, when I was 15, 16, it was like, oh, yes.
See, and I want to bring up something that you emailed me, which was you like the underdog, so you like the sharks.
Yeah.
And as I was thinking about Officer Krupke, if you like the underdogs, then you really should like the Jets. Puerto Ricans have hope.
The Puerto Ricans have families.
Exactly. You know, and that's one of the things that I love about the Spielberg version is that he opens it up and as we are now, he's more interested in the characters and how the music shapes around the characters. In the 61 version, when Tony goes to the dress shop and you have the wedding scene, in the Spielberg version, they go on a date up to the cloisters and they have the wedding there in the cloisters. But there's this wonderful scene right before they sing One Hand and One Heart where Tony says,
well, I think you come from families, homes. You and Bernardo, you have hope. You think Riff has that?
Riff could have hope if he didn't try to take hope from people he doesn't know.
Riff didn't start this. It was Bernardo. He came after me. Just because I wanted to dance with you.
Tony, if someone gets hurt because of what we do...
What did we do to anyone?
And that's the interesting thing about the character of Riff in the Spielberg version is that he's such a nihilist. It's like, go ahead and kill me. You'll be doing me a favor. I think a lot of people think that the sharks are the underdogs because they're the foreigners. They're the ones that are struggling to become accepted in America, whereas, you know, all the Jets who were born here and they're privileged somehow, but they have nothing. And it's all explained in Officer Krupke.
Yes.
It's all explained there.
Yes.
They're even at the very end, where it's like, the trouble is you're growing, the trouble is you're growing. They're stuck between a rock and a hard place. They can't turn any way.
I think why I think the Sharks are the underdog is because when Krupke is there and wants to manipulate the Jets, the way he manipulates the Jets, it says,
boy, oh boy, as if this neighborhood wasn't crummy enough. Now look, fellas, look, let's be reasonable, huh? If I don't get a little law and order around here, I get busted down to a traffic corner. And your friend don't like traffic corners. So that means you're gonna start making nice with the PRs from now on. I said nice, get it? Because if you don't, and I catch any of you doing any more brawling in my territory, I'm gonna personally beat the living crud out of each and every one of you and see that you go to the can and rot there.
We're in this together.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
on your
yes.
side. You guys know you can trust me. And we do
I'm
see...
one of you.
Yeah. We do see his casual racism towards the sharks all the time. They could side with Officer Krupke and they could get a little farther. Not that far. They get a little farther.
You're not wrong. One of the things that's in both versions that I have always loved is the honor of the street. No matter who it is, you don't rat even on a shark. You're not a stool pigeon.
That is something that I picked up more on this last viewing was, you know, someone coming up and said, "Who did this to you?" And they're just like, maybe I fell. Maybe I, you know. And it's on both sides.
We had a suspicion it was done by a cop.
We suspicion that the job was done by a cop.
Okay, so you're in musical theater. You're an actor.
I are.
Were you ever in this play?
I was.
Okay, well, this must have been like a watershed moment for you.
Well, you know, when is a gringa like this going to be able to play Anita, who is my favorite character?
Oh, yeah, I think
in
she's
the
fantastic.
Lagoon Opera House production of West Side Story in 1973.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Might have been 1974. I can't remember.
Okay.
So anyway, yes, we did. Back in the day, there was a reciprocal thing between the theater department at the University of Utah and the Lagoon Opera House. It probably sat 150 people, maybe something like that. It had a cute little stage and it was really hot. And it's like, anywho, yeah, I played Anita.
She's the best character.
She's a great character.
And Rita Moreno is just, you know.
It's true.
She's amazing. I was watching in the original after everyone's dead. No, after Bernardo is dead. You know, Anita comes in and is like,
a boy like that would kill your brother. Forget that boy and find another. One of your own kind. Stick to your own kind.
and then they have, you know, basically Maria is singing about how she loves and blah, blah, blah. But while Natalie Woods is walking around singing, there's Rita Moreno in the background having like every possible emotion in that scene. Hate, disgust, fear, distrust, jealousy, anger. And then slowly but surely we watch her like take in Maria and have this kind of acceptance for her. And it's absolutely fantastic.
It's brilliant.
It's so well done. So much so that you're kind of like, Maria,
stop talking. I want to watch Anita emote.
Yeah. Exactly. It's such an excellent scene. But you in the play, what was that like for you? I'm imagining you mowing the lawn and you're singing and you're singing and mowing the lawn. And then one day you're on a stage and you're singing those words.
Well, first of all, I never thought I would be able to do the play because I'm not
Hispanic.
I'm not Puerto Rican. And so when I heard that they were going to do it, it was directed by a classic professor at the University of Utah. His name was Robert Hyde Wilson. We used to call him Rawhide Wilson. He was a character. And I went into Rawhide and I said, you got to give me Anita. I swear, you got to give me this. And he went, I will only give you that if you will do this in Wonderful Town. I went, okay, whatever. I don't even know what Wonderful Town is, but I'll do it. So I think that was the year I did the Rosalind Russell character in Wonderful Town, and it was like awesome.
Oh.
Wonderful Town is wonderful. Speaking of Bernstein, it's another Bernstein musical.
Okay.
So I was thrilled to do it, even as goofy as it turned out being, because we were just, you know, a bunch of white kids doing West Side Story in Farmington, Utah. I mean, you really have to work hard to mess up West Side Story. It's like Fiddler. You really have to work to mess it up because it's such a perfectly structured musical. And that's one of the things that I love most about it. I think there's only a handful of perfectly structured musicals. First of all, it's based upon Romeo and Juliet, which is perfectly structured anyway. The story logically progresses from this point to this point to this point to this. There's nothing that is superimposed upon the story that isn't logical.
An impending doom.
Yeah.
And there's no way to get out of it. And in fact, my experience watching the movie is this. No, stop,
don't do it,
stop.
don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. Shoot. You know, you get to a point after the rumble, and I want to turn it off.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to see what's going to happen. It's all inevitable.
Yeah.
If only Schrank wouldn't have come to Maria's apartment to hold her up from going to see Tony. If only Maria wouldn't have sent Anita to go and tell Doc that she was going to be late. If only the Jets would have, if only she would have just left. And if only Anita wouldn't have said Chino found her and shot her.
Right. And that's when Tony just loses it.
Chino! Chino! Come and get me too, Chino!
Kill me. Just kill me.
Come and get you. I want you to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, something to be structurally perfect has to fulfill all the rules of logic. This happens, which leads to this, which is logical, which leads to this, which is logical, which leads to this, which is logical. There's not a lot of things that are so structurally sound as West Side Story.
Yeah.
I'm going to name them, however, right now. The Music Man.
Oh, okay.
I think A Little Night Music. Stephen Sondheim. Oh, beautiful. It's gorgeous. And it's also structurally perfect, I think.
So we've both just talked about how this is an exhausting movie. It's an exhausting experience. There's impending doom. So why come back to it?
I can't come back to it very often. And it's so timely. I mean, will we ever learn? You know, it's interesting because you were saying you kind of grew up in the 80s at the end of the Cold War. I grew up in the 60s. There was turmoil everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, presidents were getting killed and everybody was getting assassinated, and we had the Vietnam War. And I remember watching Walter Cronkite, and, you know, every night he would say how many kids had been killed in Vietnam. We had Jim Crow. There was nothing right with America.
On fire.
Yeah. We were going mad.
Yeah. We started by talking about musicals. I'm curious. I feel like we don't make that many musicals anymore.
Well, I've been thinking about that because you asked me that question because I think we make a different kind of musical. If you looked at last year, there were musicals. There's K-pop Dragon Slayers. They're different.
Yeah.
There's Wicked, which is very traditional musical.
Right.
There was Song Sung Blue.
That's true. I have yet to see that. But then we have things like Mamma Mia, hugely popular. And is it because they like ABBA, or is it because they love the heightened emotion and the exuberance?
Well, who doesn't like Dancing Queen? I mean, come on.
It's my sister's ringtone on my phone.
There you go. I think there's a number of reasons. I think a lot of the transition came in the 60s. It's hard to watch Gene Kelly dancing in the rain when people are getting lynched and the Vietnam War is going on.
Right.
It's hard to find the silver lining in all of that because it was a tough period. It was a really tough period. So I think art and entertainment is always going to reflect what's happening in the world. We had movies like Coming Home.
Or if you had a musical, it was like Cabaret.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is kind of nihilistic.
It's 1930s Germany, right?
Exactly.
We're all going to die, you know?
Let's all put on some like boots and die. And I think Broadway was the same. I think there's the tone of civilization and society, the mores of the time. I think it's expensive to do musicals. Let's look at Wicked. That had to cost a few cents. And I think the changing of the guard of the studio system, the guard not being showbiz people themselves, but more suits from Harvard,
right?
They don't get it. And so it's all about the bottom line. And I think there's so much about entertainment that they don't understand.
So you're saying that musicals are different, and I agree with that. You know, when I think of one of my favorite musicals of recent, and it's not even recent anymore, it's 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I think of like Almost Famous, which for me is, you know, it's a we're going to put on a show, kind of musical, but it's a rock band, right? And the musical numbers are the band up on stage.
And they did that this year with the Bruce Springsteen one. Those are our musicals now.
Yeah, and A Star is Born is going to take that same... A Star is Born is going to be remade every 20 years.
Every 20 years. Have you seen the original?
I have seen the original 1930s.
The classic is the Judy Garland, James Mason. I worked with James Mason. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
I did.
What did you guys work on?
A really terrible play. It was his last legitimate theater play called A Partridge in a Pear Tree.
Okay.
We opened at the Kennedy Center. That was the name then. We opened at the Kennedy Center in the Eisenhower Theater, and it was so bad. I found the review, the Washington Post review, and it was the opening line of it was something like, most of the time, most producers want to make sure that when the audience comes to the theater, the show is ready. Rarely do you get to come and see a rehearsal on stage. Partridge in a Pear Tree is an exception. It's like they're still rehearsing it. It's like, it was one of those where you say, please don't mention me. Please don't mention me. Please don't mention me. And thank heavens they didn't.
Oh, good. I saw this as a teenager, probably in my first film class in high school. I saw this later in college. I've seen it since then a couple of times. I'm always astounded by it.
What astounds you? I want to know.
Well, like, I remember being in my 30s and watching it and being like, oh, the colors. It was as if I hadn't noticed the colors before. All this color, all this drench of light and reds and greens and purple. Like, you know, the sharks are always in purple. And again, there's the emotional exhaustion that I experience. But there's also just this beauty. I know one time before, I remember turning it on and the jets come across the screen. I knew this is how I was old because I said to myself, they're so young and beautiful. And any time else I'd seen the movie, I'd just been like, these punks. And they're dancing this like very athletic ballet, and it just is so beautiful. And I remember thinking, this is what film is for, is to capture this beauty. And there was a time when I was in Chicago and I was walking through Chicago's Millennium Park, and they were having an outside screening of West Side Story.
Oh, my gosh.
And I wasn't going to stay the whole time, but I did stay for a minute. And I just thought, how gorgeous to see this outside with this heterogeneous crowd where everyone is from everywhere in Chicago, all together, reliving this tragedy together. What must that be like for these people? And then I walked away because I was like, hot dogs? You know? Are we getting hot
Chicago?
dogs?
Pizza? Hot dogs? What?
Popcorn? I think for me, every time I turn it on, I might be old enough to get yet another thing from this movie.
One of the things I like so much about Bernstein is that his music is so compelling and so complex. How many times have I listened to it and watched it and I never get tired of it? And I'm getting weepy now because there's just so much of who Bernstein was and his own personal torment and his own personal tragedies and his own personal everything that's in it. I never get tired of listening to any part of that musical, ever.
It was really great for me to reconnect with Elizabeth. She was one of my screenwriting professors when I was in college, and I've always admired her gutsiness. I love what she had to say about musicals speaking to us so directly. They make us sing and dance and are often dismissed for it, and they also help us feel very deeply all sorts of emotions. West Side Story shows us that. Would the tragedy be as heartrending if we didn't have the vigor and brightness of the music in the beginning to contrast with those minor key ballads at the end? In fact, throughout film history, musicals have tackled all kinds of stories that we might not think of as lighthearted and effervescent. And I'll just say, source material really matters here. Which leads me to my first recommendation, Carmen Jones from 1954, directed by German immigrant Otto Preminger. The film upset some white people at the time because it uses Georges Bizet's 1875 tragic opera, Carmen, which was considered high culture at the time, and adapted it for the American Black experience during World War II, and was performed by an all-black cast. The film stars Harry Belafonte and Dorothy Dandridge as the star-crossed fated lovers, and Dandridge became the first Black woman to be nominated for a Best Actress Academy Award. Another great musical to check out, also a tragedy, is the dance film The Red Shoes from Powell and Pressburger in the UK. It's an adaptation of Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale transposed to ballet. Surreal, fantastic, dark, like all good fairy tales, it's about a young dancer who bargains for a pair of red ballet shoes that force her to dance until her death. The dancing is marvelous, the set design is moody, and they're using this very rich, textured Technicolor that is just gorgeous to behold. Lastly, because we need a little sweet with our savory, I'm going to recommend the 1944 Meet Me in St. Louis. This has been described as Vincent Minnelli's love letter to Judy Garland. They're going to get married shortly thereafter, but he directs his star in this Technicolor paean to small-time Americana with bright set pieces like the trolley song. But the film also includes Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, one of the most broken-hearted hymns to loneliness out there. And all of this is due to Tootie, the little sister character who has these outsized emotions that can't be easily soothed. She's probably my favorite part of the film. That's our show. I'm your host, Heather Bigley. Voiceover is produced by BYU Radio and edited by Spencer Boyer.